Hello, everyone. Welcome to Resistance Live. It's the 19th of November, 2024. And it's another day in anticipation of what's coming at us on January 20th. I thought today would be a good day to start with something that's not our usual news. And I'm going to tell you why. I logged in this morning to our Patreon feed where you all know you can become a paid subscriber if you want to ask me questions. And there's just like an enormous amount of panic and fear and even kind of like claims that X, Y, and Z certain Democratic officials should be doing something about why. And I just want everyone to like take a breath here for a minute, not for the purposes of diminishing where we're at or the very real threats of what's coming, but because operating in a nonstop state of panic is not good for anyone. And I personally, we have people in our Patreon feed who had to go to, for instance, the hospital last night with a panic attack. We have other people who were showing very significant signs of stress. And it's a very hard moment to manage all of this. All right. Now, you all know since the election, I've been coming on here and talking about the importance of getting in community with people. And last night I was on a call. And I'm not going to tell you like the nature of the call, but I was on a call where this topic came up and where the debate that was being had on the call was about how we can appropriately mobilize when essentially like every 5 seconds, there's another bit of bad news coming at us. And the suggestion that was made by these organizers who are like deeply, deeply experienced in what they do was to remember that first of all, that he's not president yet. Second of all, that we have a very short window of time here in which to mobilize for people's safety. And third, to remember that when we are in a state of fight or flight and when we are exhausted, we will make serious mistakes that could have, you know, in some instances, life or death consequences. All right. So one of the things that people need to start doing here is considering how you are responding to what's happening and what you are engaging in that is causing that kind of panic. All right. So we're going to talk about that. Before we get started, I'm ECM. For those of you who don't know me, I was a Wall Street trial lawyer for 15 years. Then I started a company that focuses on leadership and political consulting. I've been an activist my whole life. And since the onset of the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, we've been here on this broadcast, literally coming up on 8 years now, talking about everything having to do with politics and law and activism and mobilizing. And it's all through a very trauma-informed perspective. So grateful to you if you're new here. I know we've had a bunch of new followers in the last few weeks. Thankful to all of you. For our visually challenged viewers today, I am wearing a cream-colored turtleneck sweater. I am a pink-skinned, green-eyed, dirty, blonde-haired woman, and my hair is down today. I am in front of an oak cabinet and a plant and my stack of books. And for those of you who are regulars, I fixed my camera angle. I'm much happier with it today. All right, so I want you all to think about something, okay? Because there's this regular phenomenon that happens on our Patreon subscriber question feed where I log in the morning after some horrifically scary story has dropped on mainstream media and people are in like a total and complete panic. There was some of that this morning as a result of a broadcast last night, apparently on MSNBC. I will freely admit I have not turned on that channel, save for like 5 minutes since the election, okay? Apparently because of a broadcast that was like, Musk and Trump are going to take away the power of the purse in Congress. All right. First of all, it's highly unlikely, all right? But second of all, because by the way, that's like the whole separation of powers and there's all sorts of constitutional provisions. But I also want you all to understand something, okay? One of the problems that we are all having right now, and I really want to just like nail this home for all of you, is that there is an enormous amount of speculation about what's coming. All right. There's an enormous amount, as we discussed yesterday, of capitulation happening in advance. where people are like, and we had breaking news this morning, by the way. You all know we spent yesterday talking about Morning Joe for part of the broadcast. There's breaking news this morning that Joe Scarborough literally is afraid of being persecuted by Trump and his lackeys. And that's the reason why he and Mika Brzezinski went down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring in the hope that they will not be arrested by the incoming administration. That, by the way, is a key moment, a key example of capitulation in advance, okay? Because what we need right now from our media figures is truthful reporting about what's happening. Reporting, as the slogan of MSNBC has gone for many years, without fear or favor, all right? That's exactly what we're seeing. And, you know, again, you can go read Timothy Schneider's book on tyranny. You can watch his videos here on YouTube. If you want an understanding of why exactly it is that you do not capitulate in advance. One of the reasons why is that some of the power that they are asserting that they have, they do not actually have. And they're hoping that by threatening it, people will capitulate and roll over and give it to them. All right. Just like Joe and Mika did yesterday. All right. But we also don't even know yet what they're actually going to do. And while we are all feeling like hypervigilant and very traumatized, and many of us are still getting over what happened in the election itself, you know, I still have my moments. We actually don't know what they're going to do yet. We don't know what's going to work. We don't know if it's going to be effective. We don't know which pillars of democracy are going to stand. We talked yesterday about the importance of emphasizing that all the bastions aren't gone, that there are mechanisms still in place to defend our democracy, and that those need to kind of like continue to be relied upon and emphasized and supported. Okay. We can't predict the future. And however hypervigilant you are, however panicked or afraid, we will not know what is coming until it arrives. But the one thing I can guarantee you is that if you spend all your time between now and January 20th spinning out about the horrible next thing that could take place, you will arrive at that date when you will be most needed by your community, by your family members, perhaps, by your loved ones, exhausted, completely burnt out, and essentially incapable of a rational, appropriate, perhaps disruptive, at the bare minimum community-based response, okay? There is no need right now, okay, to spiral out into panic every time there is a news story that is designed for clicks to scare you, or every time there is an announcement out of the incoming administration about the next lunatic, sexual predator, you know, conspiracy theorist they've nominated to a cabinet role who may never actually get appointed. All right. So one of the things that you need to do right now, and I really want to recommend this because this is something that I took away from the call that I was on last night. One thing that you really need to do right now is rest. Okay. The push notifications on your phone are not going to allow you to rest. The mainstream media is not going to allow you to rest. Talking nonstop with people on social media about the next horrible thing that could be coming is not going to allow you to rest. And if we do not rest now, until we feel that we are able to get back in the fight, we will have no fight left. So one of the things that I want people to do, honestly, and I'm really serious about this, is check out if you need to. And checking out doesn't mean hiding like under a blanket on your couch. It means going out for coffee with a friend. Okay, I did that this morning at 8 a.m. Okay, it means taking time to be with family or with people who love you. And you can talk about politics there if you want to, but also I would encourage you to take some time to just connect with people and be cared for and care for others. All right, which by the way is the foundation of what we're going to need coming next anyhow. Because if we try to do things too fast, if we operate with this artificial sense of urgency right now, like, oh my God, the sky is falling, we've got to do X, Y, and Z, we will make mistakes. Okay. And on top of that, we won't be as focused on the true need for what's coming next of building small, trustworthy circles of care in our own communities. All right. Like, you've got to understand, and somebody asked me this question last night on Blue Sky, like, so what's the plan then? Right? Kind of a little bit of an obnoxious tone to that, but okay. The plan is this, okay? The plan is to get in community with people where you live in small, trusted circles of safety and plan for how you're going to get through this. What are the needs of the people in your circle? What are the needs of the people in your community? How can you help to keep people alive and support them and protect people and create safety? How can you advocate at the state and local level for those things so that there is a mechanism ready for pushback come January 20th? Now, people don't like this answer because it's not like sexy, right? This is one thing that I've realized in the time that I've been talking about this in the last 10 days. Like, some people, because of their own fight or flight response, want people screaming in the streets. We spent a lot of time on this broadcast in the last few weeks talking about why this is not the moment for that, okay? If you do not start thinking about this at, levels that are kind of a little bit uncomfortable, like you've got to get to know new people where you live. You've got to vet them and figure out whether or not you can trust them. You've got to start building relationships that you haven't had before. And you're probably going to have to make some like uncomfortable bedfellows, right? That neighbor down the street who is not your favorite person may still, and I'm not talking Trumpers, I'm talking like the person you kind of don't like, may be someone who you need to have in your circle for the safety of your community at large. All right. And this is like real grassroots organizing. Okay. And the other thing I'm going to tell you about this is that while we are running a class on this, like, let me just drop the link in here, called the Dual Power Accelerator. By the way, registration closes a week from today. If you want to get in on that, you should do it now. I'll drop a link up here when we're done, like always. But one of the things that you have to realize here is that like nobody's going to kind of like stand up and instruct you in your own community on how to do this. There are probably organizers there who have already been doing it, who you need to get in touch with and get in community with. But if there aren't, you've got to be the person who starts this. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, right? It can be having people over into your home, sitting down and having coffee or hot chocolate or whatever, having a conversation about what's going on in your neighborhood and what people need and what you're worried about or what you need, right? This is not like, rah, rah, ha, ha, let's all go knit hats and march around Washington, D.C. It's not going to be that, all right? It needs to be attacked right now, for lack of a better word, from a position of safety and service. And this is not, lots of things about it can be fun. Like you can start like a radical feminist book group that does like, this same thing, right? It can be a knitting group. It can be a card game. There's all sorts of ways to do this to make it fun. And it's better if it is fun, but there's not going to be some kind of like rah-rah revolutionary uprising right at this moment. All right. In part because people are still getting their bearings and you've got to be a part of the solution. Okay. Which you cannot be if you are running around in a state of panic, flipping out. I don't mean that as an insult to anyone, but I'm seeing things that arguably would fall within that realm at every last little thing that the Trump administration is doing. Why? Because that's the point. Okay. If you are doing that, you are allowing them to win, because one of the aims of fascism is to wear people out, make them feel disengaged and alienated, and essentially shut them down from doing anything that could potentially put them at risk, even if the risk isn't real. All right. So start doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. Okay. That's where all of this begins. You have to start making choices that remove you from the cycle of the trauma bond. Again, this is something that we're going to talk about a lot in the Dual Power Accelerator. If you want to know more about this, you got to get in on this class. But one of the things that I just have to say right now is that I am exhausted reading some of the comments on our Patreon feed, because everything is level 11. And while I know we're devastated and we're really disappointed, operating at level 11 all the time is a recipe for adrenal fatigue, burnout, and very serious health problems. And we need you. We need each other. All of us are going to have to show up and be ready to do the necessary things for what's coming, whatever it is, right? So take a breath and remove yourself from the cycle for however long you need to do it until you're ready to get back up and fight again. All right. And again, the other thing I just have to say here, because I think this is worth saying, we talked yesterday about doomsaying, right? We talked about the fact that when you go out on social media and you're like, all is lost, All the boundaries have fallen. America had a good run. We're never going to have another election again. That shit is contagious. That what you are doing is giving other people a reason to say it's all hopeless. Why should I bother? And that, by the way, is doing the work of fascism for it. Okay. All is not lost. There is still hope. There are still means to throw sand in the gears and gravel in the gears and disrupt and refuse to comply. Okay. No less than Alex Winter was out on Blue Sky this morning saying, like, this is where the line in the sand gets drawn. You refuse to comply with what they're suggesting. You become ungovernable. Okay. They want to round up your neighbors. The answer to that is sorry, right? And again, Tom Homan is out there this morning on Fox News threatening that people who hide migrants will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. That is just a little bit resonant of the Diary of Anne Frank. Can I just point it out? Okay. You do not have to comply in advance. None of us do. All right. But you can't be in a position to effectively disrupt on a small and local level if you are constantly running around like level 11, sky is falling, it's all over, it's hopeless, I'm going to go hide, whatever. Like, that's not going to work. Okay. We all need to take a breath, rest, please rest. Okay. And then start building local intimate community where you live. Now, I have to say a couple of things that are related to this because last night I started to get really pissed off on Blue Sky. And I'll tell you why. It was because there are people coming screaming now into my comments. And this has happened a few times here as well with, why aren't you out there calling for recounts everywhere? You know, what's the harm in calling for recounts? And if we think something happened, there should be a recount everywhere. All right, I'm just going to say this. Oh, and then the other version of this, just so we all understand where we're coming from, is like, why hasn't Biden made Kamala Harris the president of the United States? Why Biden has full immunity? Why hasn't he shut this whole thing down? How do I call presidential electors and get them to switch their votes? Why aren't the Democrats doing enough? Okay. So I just have to say something about all of this, okay? No one is coming to save us. No one is coming to save us. The people who are going to save us are us. It's you and me and everybody who watches this broadcast and everybody who cares about democracy and everybody who cares about other human beings because they are other human beings, right? No one is swooping in to save us this time. And, you know, the other thing I just have to remind you all of here is that there are proportional recounts happening in many of these states because it's the law. Okay, there are things that President Biden is already doing that are designed to at least shore up democracy abroad, right? We had like the first missile strike with President Biden's approval into Russia this morning by Ukraine. There will be other things coming, okay? But the outcome of this election, notwithstanding the voter suppression efforts that we know came from Russia, is not in doubt, okay? I wish it was otherwise. I wish I could say to all of you that there is like definitive proof here as we sit 2 weeks on from the election that votes were changed and things were messed with and voter machines were interfered with. There's no evidence of that, folks. And the longer that you ride that mindset, the less time you're going to have to prepare for what's coming next. You can be upset about, with me about it, but that's where we're at. No one is coming to save us. So the job now is on us, like it always has been, by the way. You all know, if you've been here for the last 8 years, participatory democracy depends on our participation. Its survival depends on our participation, okay? And doesn't mean we don't have great leaders. Elizabeth Warren is doing a phenomenal job right now with everything that she's putting out on social media and the ways in which she has kind of stepped into the breach. So, by the way, is AOC. But we're the people who are going to keep our loved ones safe. We're the people who are going to make sure that people in our community have enough to eat, and that if Social Security goes the way of God knows what, that people have a place to live. Okay? We're the people who are going to make sure that the people who are scared have a place to come and to talk about that and get support and experience love and safety, even if it's just in our own homes, right? We do not have to comply with what they are proposing. But the only way that we can do that is if we understand that, like, the obligation is on us. Now, there are leaders who are in the breach. We talked about this yesterday too. There are Democratic governors who are ramping up for this, right? There are state and local officials who are ramping up for this. There are bastions of democracy that still stand. But it is time right now to understand that we all must be in community with one another, because that's the answer. That's actually like the only secure answer that there is. All right. And I have to say that, even on this call I was on last night, people understand the stakes, right? People with a lot less privilege than I do understand that people are going to die. And that's really scary. All right. It's terrifying, in fact. Now, we don't know how this is all going to play out. Again, I have to reiterate that. There's a lot of weaknesses in what they're proposing, and a lot of means for disruption, and a lot of laws, and a lot of court actions, and a lot of ways in which none of this may go as they're suggesting. Okay. But we are the reason in large part that at least the bulk of what they're trying to carry out may not work. And it's time to get in the game, right? It's time to get in the game, because we really don't have much longer to prep for this. All right. And again, we don't know what's coming, but we do know that the solution is always going to be loving one another and being in community with one another and figuring out where we live, how to build circles of trust. That's the answer. That's the answer. So, all right. I'm going to spend a little bit of time. I hope that's helpful. First of all, it felt really important to talk about it today. Right. And the other thing I'm just going to say here is that just in the same way that we talk about Trumpism as a cult or as an addiction, on our side of the fence, the addiction to the dopamine cycle of here's the latest horrible thing that they've done is in fact a fundamental aspect of trauma bonding, right? We're hooked into the dopamine of here's the latest crisis. Oh my God, I have to panic. Okay. And that it really does mess you up. If you know anything about brain chemistry, you don't make good decisions when you're in fight or flight, right? And, one other final thing before I move on, another point I just want to make here, okay, is that we're not going to be able to do everything all at once. This is something that, again, was reiterated and discussed in some of the calls that I've been on in the last few weeks. We're going to have to make decisions from an individual basis and a collective basis about what we can handle at this time, right? What makes the most sense for us, right? And that may mean that there will be grieving of the bigger things that we might have wanted to do, or maybe it's not the moment for those. Okay. But we can't be demanding wild things right now when people are exhausted and when people are afraid. What we need to do is scale back and get in community. So that's, that's my discussion of that for today. And those of you who have been here for a really long time know that we will continue having this discussion for as long as it takes, because it's important. All right. Let's talk for a second about some news. So there's more breaking news about Matt Gaetz, and this story is far from over. Okay. I'm just going to tell you all, I don't think he's actually going to end up being the attorney general. I'm just going to I know you can take my predictions for what they're worth, but a hacker actually hacked into the files of a legal office. This news just broke an hour ago, and apparently downloaded testimony and statements and documentary evidence from the 17-year-old that he is alleged to have raped. That, by the way, is from a civil lawsuit where someone sued people related to Joel Greenberg and attorneys and the accuser for defamation. Discovery will ruin you every time if you're alleging defamation about something that's actually the truth. For the defamation suit was filed by the person who hosted the party where this rape took place, allegedly. Okay. So we may see more of this soon, but also there are a growing number of people on the Hill who are calling for the release of this report from the House Ethics Committee. We learned yesterday from the attorney representing both the victim and a witness that the witness actually saw Matt Gaetz having sex with this minor, and that both of them testified to the House Ethics Committee that they were paid for sex, including through, wait for it, Matt Gaetz's adopted son's PayPal account. There are still bridges that are too far. We'll have to see how this plays out, but I will tell you that, the kind of reporting out of the Hill is not looking good for him. And so again, this is something that I want people to consider here. Okay. Just because Trump has made announcements about the people that he wants in his cabinet does not mean they're actually going to get there. And all of them have reasons to be challenged. This is one reason why we were talking yesterday about the importance of calling your senators right now. Call them. Call them. Also call your House reps about, 9545, which we talked about yesterday, which would allow, any organization designated by the Treasury Department as a terrorist organization to be shut down, even if it's like, your local food bank. So please understand the story with Matt Gaetz is not over. All right. We also have some very bad breaking news out of the House related to Sarah McBride, who, as you all will remember, is our first elected trans congressperson from the state of Delaware. Nancy Mace yesterday introduced a bill banning quote unquote biological males from using bathrooms in the House of Representatives that are designated for quote unquote women. All right. Mike Johnson this morning refused to comment on this, but it does appear that they think they've got the votes for this. I'm just going to say that it's shameful. It's despicable. And the history books are going to look at it, as I said last night, in the same way that they look at the white people screaming at Ruby Bridges when she and her childhood friends integrated all white schools. It's appalling. It's just completely appalling. And, the other thing I'm just going to say here is that it's not going to distract Sarah McBride. She herself has already made statements about the fact that she's not paying attention to any of this nonsense because she's too busy paying attention to what her constituents are going to need when she's sworn in. So this is something that we're going to keep an eye on, but I just have to point out, I think a lot of people, like a growing number of people, and by the way, exit polling is showing this, do not appreciate the transphobia that is being weaponized essentially for the far right. And that includes, by the way, like more moderate people. People are sick of this, right? They're sick of it. Like, let Sarah McBride use the frickin' bathroom. Okay. It's just, it's so stupid. So again, and I'll just point this out. They're raising huge objections to Sarah McBride using the bathroom of her gender on the claim that somehow it's a threat to women, but they're totally fine with Matt Gaetz paying teenage prostitutes and raping underage girls being the Attorney General of the United States. Now, I know they're immune to hypocrisy, but I want to make it really clear, this is all for show, right? It's all performative because their values are in what they do, right? And we know what they're doing. Okay, they're discriminating against the first trans elected official in the House of Representatives, and they're allowing a rapist to attempt to ascend to the Attorney General of the United States. So see it all very clearly for what it is. Okay. We did have something out of the Georgia Court of Appeals this morning that everybody should just be aware of. The Georgia Court of Appeals canceled oral argument on the case involving Fani Willis that was on appeal. Okay. Again, this is an appeal of the decision by Judge McAfee that there was no misconduct by Fani Willis in her, relationship with a prosecutor that ended before the Trump case began. Just an appearance of impropriety. And if he left the team, there wasn't going to be an issue. That is what is on appeal to the Georgia Court of Appeals. They canceled the oral argument, which was scheduled for next month. I'm just going to say this. It does not mean the case has been kicked. Do I feel optimistic about it right now? But oral arguments get canceled all the time. I had this happen to me in federal court more times than I can count. And usually it was because the court did not feel that oral argument was needed on a given issue because it was so cut and dried. All right. Now, reminder, even with Donald Trump ascending to the presidency, there's a pile of co-conspirators in the Georgia case. And there's no basis to dismiss the allegations against the co-conspirators. And there's really not any basis to dismiss it against Trump, okay? Because it's a state case. There's no state policy that says you can't prosecute a sitting president, unlike the DOJ, right? So again, we're going to have to kind of wait and see how this plays out, but they're not going to kick all the indictments of the co-conspirators, okay? They may reverse the decision on Fani Willis, which I think would be a shocker, but in that case, it's going to go up to the Georgia Supreme Court. Okay, so we have a road to walk here, and we'll see how it goes. The canceling of oral argument is not in and of itself like some huge warning sign. Okay, it's actually really just a scheduling matter. So while I'm not pleased with it, while I'm not going to tell you that it makes me terribly optimistic, it also doesn't mean that the whole case is over. All right, so let's wait and see what happens with that. Okay, final question today was about something that Lawrence Tribe has said. He recommended last night or this morning that Joe Biden undertake through his authority an order requiring the vetting of cabinet appointees. You will all remember that the Trump team is bypassing the traditional FBI background check mechanism because none of their people would pass it, except maybe Marco Rubio. And, one of the things that's raising concerns about is, things like security clearances and the like. And so there's a suggestion from Lawrence Tribe that legally Biden could require the vetting of various cabinet appointees under his current authority. I don't doubt that that's the case. Lawrence Tribe, again, is, one of our nation's most renowned legal scholars. I don't know if Biden will try it, but I'm going to remind you all of one thing, okay? The ultimate authority on whether or not to grant a security clearance lies with the president. So even if Biden orders background checks on all of these nominees, when Trump becomes the president, he can simply say, just like he did with Jared Kushner, too bad, so sad. Here's your highest level security clearance anyway. This is yet again a reason why elections matter. So again, quick reminder that one of the issues with demanding that Biden do X, Y, and Z is that the power of the presidency that he has will convert to Donald Trump when Trump takes the oath of office. And that in and of itself is going to mean that he could feasibly reverse anything that's taken under executive order power the second that he's in office. Okay. So while I appreciate the suggestion and I see all the right reasons for it, I'm not sure it's really going to matter that much in the context of like post January 20th. Okay. Last thing that I just want to mention for today, and again, we spent a lot of time on this broadcast talking about the importance of managing your emotions in relation to what's happening, resting, preparing for what's coming. So many of you know that the original live version of this broadcast was taken in front of the Brooklyn Federal Courthouse on the night that the ACLU was trying to get a stay of the Muslim ban. And it was after the huge turnout at JFK and airports all around the country to protest the Muslim ban and also to enlist lawyers to help people who were flying into the country who suddenly found that they could not get in. That event, just so we're all clear, was just 7 days from when Trump took the oath of office the first time. All right. So one of the reasons why I'm telling you guys to rest now, get in community now, think about what you're going to do now where you live, build circles of care and trust, small ones. It doesn't have to be big. Think about how you're going to advocate to your state and local officials for the things that your community is going to need. All right. The reason why I'm advocating for that now is that we know that it's going to be an absolute blitzkrieg come January 20th. They've told us that already, right? So the thing I want you to kind of like consider in the context of everything that we've discussed today is that January 20th is when we're really going to start to know how some of this will play out. And we've got to be ready for it, right? One of the things, again, just to like repeat something that a great organizer shared on one of the calls that I was on recently, is that we need emotional fortitude right now, right? We need emotional fortitude for what's coming because we cannot allow ourselves to spiral out at what comes next. We need rational assessment of risk, okay? And then we have to make decisions based on staying grounded, staying rational, and what's going to be the most effective for us, for people that we care about, and eventually on a much greater level, all right? So please make sure as you consider all of this, that you understand that like the true need for organizing has not yet arrived, all right? And when it gets here, we're all really going to have to be at our best, all right? So again, I really want to encourage you all to take time off if you need it. You all know that I said yesterday I was trying to walk my talk. I did not do it today. I may take Friday off. I'm just warning you guys. Like I may just take Friday off for myself. And I will keep you posted on that because again, I'm also trying to walk my talk here. And, in the interim, if you're interested in when you're taking a break away from mainstream news or social media or whatever, I would encourage you to go read up on like historic resistance movements. I know there's a lot of smearing of like resistance and all that, and not to the point that I've even considered changing the name of this broadcast. But I do want to just point something out, okay? There's history that informs how what we're talking about now can work, okay, including in the face of like atrocity. And the more that we can be rational and grounded and informed about what is likely to be effective, the more effective we will be. All right. So again, emotional fortitude, rest when you need it, make rational decisions, don't panic, don't spin out into imagining what's coming because we don't know that. All right. And get in community with people who love you, or at the bare minimum, like some neighbors you get along with really well. All right. That's my best advice right now for all of you. You guys are awesome. Mad gratitude to all of our Patreon subscribers. Final reminder that the Dual Power Accelerator, our 10-week program on how to build community for safety and survival and also disruption, registration closes a week from today. So if you think you want to get in on that, like now would be the time. I'll let you all know again throughout the week that that's coming, but I'll drop another link up here for you guys so that you can register if you would care to. We have a tremendous group of people in this program already. I'm really excited about it. Class starts a week from tomorrow. All right. Lots of love to all of you. I will catch you all here very soon. And I hope you all have a great, hopefully relaxing rest of your day. All right, people, take care of yourselves. Bye.